3.0. So I had 2 torches, and this is the third one. And thank you all for coming. First of all, because you are all students of science, I'm sure you understand that the inner shells are always filled before the outer shells are filled. But I find here outer shells are much more filled than the inner shells, which is interesting to see, because everybody wants to become a valence electron so that you can escape whenever it is possible. But we all know, according to the Einstein's theory of correlative effect, there is also a work function which is necessary. It's not easy to go outside, even if you are a free electron in the material. Right? So thank you. Let us. It's an evening program. So hopefully it will become more interactive, and hopefully it will be a little bit more fun than what we had in the morning. Right? So let's talk about it, because this is a very important thing. Let's go ahead. I'll jump this. This was about the poem which Professor Bhatt told in the morning, but I'll probably cut short. Right? Can you run this? Is it possible to run it? There's a video. Or anyway, it's okay. I'll leave it. Okay, friends. This is about a year and a half ago. Right? A picture which bothered all of us. Right? We saw that the COVID attacked the whole world, and we were all struggling. Okay? We didn't know what to do. Everything was a great suspense to all of us. If you remember whether I should go out of the house, how many times have I cleaned my hand, right? The mask, everything. Now we have got used to it. So we wear, it's very interesting now the way we wear the mask. When we are alone, we wear the mask. When we come in public, we open it. I mean, it's a bit strange, but that's how it is. Right? So, but very important, friends, at that time, about a year and a half ago, the tension was very high everywhere. I mean, definitely you have all experienced this. And as I said in the morning, we lost a lot of our close people who were very close, and so many people who we didn't know. But see, at the same time, our irresponsible neighbors also ventured into our territory. Right? They ventured into territory, and we had trouble. We had some people at the border, warriors fighting at the border, and then we had a lot of warriors, health warriors fighting inside the nation. So there was warrior, really, I mean, they were saving our lives. As I said in the morning, what are they saving, right? What are they protecting? I think it's a very, very important thing. So that's why it's important to build a nation which is worth defending, right? So look at these two warriors, border warriors and the health warriors. But what happened is now the system has been devastated. A lot of things went backwards, but now it is time for us to reimagine India, as I told you in the morning, and also rebuild India. Now, what do I mean by reimagine India and rebuild India? And who are the warriors who are going to do this? And I call them as reimagining India is possible by knowledge warriors. Right? Knowledge warriors are all of you. Okay, all of you sitting here, and we have to conquer this problem and rebuild and reimagine India with the kind of knowledge we have. I think that is Jnana Yodaru. Kannadalli ಹೇಳಬೇಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಯೋಧರು ಈಗ their role becomes very important in rebuilding India. Okay, friends, let's go ahead. These are some graphs which I'm sure you are all familiar, but I'll just show one of them. See, this is about the GDP per capita. Right? The GDP per capita, which actually tells the story of where we are. The green curve is the GDP of the whole world. Okay. The blue one is the GDP of China, and red one is the GDP per capita of India. This curve actually tells, I'm comparing only India and China and the world, because that is the only nation we can compare. Others are small or big or old or new, everything of that sort. But China we can always compare. And see, look at this. Very interestingly, somewhere around 1990, we were both the same. Right? We were almost the same. The GDP per capita was same. But suddenly, you see, after 1991, China has taken off like anything, about at least 2 times, and then the total GDP, which is nearly about 8 to 9 times that of India. Imagine such a huge difference between India and China now, and we know that when America threatens somebody, okay, then especially like in the software, if the H-1B visa is not granted, okay, so there is a cough by the President of America, we get fever in India. Right? Even if he coughs, we get a fever in India. But look at China, the way they are able to, anything American the president says, they are able to counter it. And because of this huge development they have done. And this huge development, my friends, is definitely one reason is manufacturing, but the other one is education. The kind of stress China gave for education and science, okay, has brought in this change. I'm not telling that everything which happens in China is good, but there are many things to learn from the development of China. I think it's very important for us to learn something and do something about it. Okay, so I'll not go. This is another curve which shows the gross enrollment ratio in higher education. 1 in 4 are coming to higher education, rest are not coming. The NMP aspires that after 15 to 20 years after the NEP, in 1942 or 41, they expect about 50% of the GDP. Now, look at these developed countries, they are all in the order of 95, okay, 90%, 95%. So we talk about India becoming a nation number 1 in the world, right? We all want India to become the best in the world. It's our natural aspiration, being India, we want it to become like that. But look at the problem. It's such a serious problem. Unless our gross enrollment ratio goes to about 90%, okay, we will not be able to do that. So if you want to go to 90%, and the NEP aspires even just about 50%, even after 15, 20 years, where are we? Right? Very important that there is a paradigm shift in education which is necessary. I'll not go about the other graph, let me go ahead because of the lack of time. Let's talk about education, right? We all know that there are several civilizations which have gone in the past. The Mesopotamian civilization about 3,600 years ago, the Egyptian civilization about 3,200 years ago, the Indian civilization about nearly 3,000 years ago, and then of course the Chinese civilization, the Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, etc. The Mayan civilization, so many civilizations have happened. When he's walking on the beaches of Mexico, just like what I was doing yesterday in the beach of in Mangalore, okay, because that's where inspiration comes, right? When you walk alone on the beaches, many people have found inspiration. That's what Jared Diamond was also doing. He was walking along the beach, and a small school teacher, okay, a tiny school teacher, came up to him and asked him, "What's your name?" So this fellow said, I'm Jared Diamond. "What do you do?" He said, "I'm an evolutionary biologist." He said, what is the meaning of evolutionary biologist? Then he went on explaining what is evolutionary biology, etc. So you understand evolution, he said. Yeah, he said, I try to understand evolution. Then he asked this question. Oh, one question has been bothering me for the last 20 years. Okay, I hope you can answer this question. So he asked, what is the question? So that fellow said, look, we had all these wonderful civilizations. The Chinese civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization, the Indian civilization, the Mayan civilization, Greek civilization, everything was there. And he said, now, all those great civilizations, with all the knowledge, with all the greatness, why are they all poor countries now? All those civilizations, the Egyptians, the Mayans, everybody in that country has become very poor. Why is it? If they had so much knowledge, they should not have become poor. Right? This is a question which bothered Jared Diamond. Diamond thought he can answer this question, but when he tried to answer this question, he found it very difficult. And then he said, then he immediately cut short his holiday, went back to California, and studied for about nearly 13 years, and wrote this book called as Guns, Germs and Steel. Okay, of how the rise and fall of civilizations, how it has happened. So each civilization, okay, again as I said, civilizations means education. Okay, that each civilization has a different method of education, and that is how they became civilizations. Civilization doesn't come with trade, it is all a consequence. But what actually happens is education. So now let's look at these civilizations. Hopefully, in the kind of picture we have very limited information about these civilizations, we have these kind of pictures. Maybe the Egyptian civilizations look, and the Mesopotamian civilization look something like this. These are some of the pictures in the caves, which gives you that idea. And then you had the Egyptian civilization, the schooling was something like that. And then we had our own great Indian civilization, the Gurukula system and other systems in India, which survived for a long time. And then we had the Chinese civilization, which came up very well, and some sort of an experiential education system. So every country system, okay, every civilization had a unique way of spreading education. It was very beautiful. But one of the unique things about India, which makes us proud about is probably, of course, you know that the achievements of every civilization are great. There is no doubt about it. Every civilization has contributed to the knowledge of the world. So has Indian civilization. We all know so many contributions from Aryabhata, Sushruta, and all sorts of contributions to this world. Similarly, every civilization has contributed, and we all take pride in it. Okay, but beauty of this civilization in the way it entered was. Hello. Okay. The beauty of this of Indian civilization was probably we had the first universities in the world. Okay, we had many universities in the world, like Nalanda, Takshashila, Vallabhi, Pushpagiri. These are some of the famous ones. but there are so many. People claim at Ashoka's time there were about 17 universities in India. So that was a great. And what do you mean by university? University means universal education, universality of education. That means it was not local information. The information which was mixed with education from all other civilizations. There's a lot of connect which started even in those days with these civilizations. So the knowledge flew from one civilization to other, and it became so powerful, and that's how the knowledge grew. And that was, of course, approximately the beginning of the scientific inquiry. This was happening. Okay, so there were so many civilizations. Now let's see what kind of professions they had during those days. Okay, let us understand that the kind of professions they had. First is, of course, you need a farmer and a hunter for food. Food is the primary requirement. So a farmer and a hunter was there. A farmer would go and grow food, and then the hunter would go and bring animals for food. And that is one of the main professions. Right? That was the main profession. After that, we had craftsmen, potters and carpenters and people who weave your cloth and all sorts of daily necessity items. So they were there who were doing this business. Then we had tiny craftsmen of different kinds, etc. They were doing all sorts of things. Then we had very small kingdoms. There was no large country or anything in any of these civilizations. They were all small rulers. So their electron means parts, something like that. And the length of travel would have been very limited at that time. So they had small kingdoms. And so the major job was to fighting between kingdoms. There had so many neighbors around them, and fighting was a major problem. So at this bottom of the pyramid were the landless workers, a lot of landless workers. Then you had land-owning farmers, artisans and merchants, because once the artisans and the food was grown, somebody had to sell them, so merchants got created. Okay, and then you had wealthy owners and the gentry who were there, and above them was a smaller number of scholars and officials, and above them, of course, the emperor and the imperial courts. They were there. So now look at this number as it goes on decreasing. Of course, this pyramid doesn't really represent. The number is very huge at the bottom and very small at the top. So what kind of education must have gone at that time? See, you look at this craftsman and everybody and the soldier, especially the craftsman and the farmer, it went through the families. Okay, that means the grandfather was a carpenter, his son also would be a carpenter, and his grandson also would be a carpenter, and the art is learned in the house itself. The art of doing it was learned in the house itself, and so they didn't really need to know any new education. It was just that was enough to carry on that kind of a knowledge. But only some people, okay, like the emperors, the scholars, etc., they needed a wider education because they are the ones who could not get that experience in their houses. They wouldn't get that experience of what happens in politics, what happens in commerce, what happens in psychology. These kind of things did not happen. And that is how they were getting special educations. So friends, look at this. And so this went on for many years. And then the scene completely shifted to Europe. Right? So first, Industrial Revolution, we call it as 0.0 Industrial Revolution, is when Jan Studenberg, a German clergyman, who invented the printing press. The printing press was the first invention of a big machine. Because what he wanted was, he saw that the Bible had to spread a lot more. The message of the Bible had to spread a lot more. But he found out that it was going from mouth to mouth or mouth to ear, and he found that there were a lot of distortions in the way Bible was spreading. So he said that you should make something spread the Bible, plus at the same time keep the originality of the ideas. So he invented this machine. Then with a lot of ink which was taken from plants and everything, he made inks and started printing the Bibles and spreading them. So this was the first Industrial Revolution 1.0. So you see here, but now you see then we started huge printing machines, right? We all remember, maybe 20-30 years ago, you people may not be knowing, before the era of computers, there was something called as typesetting. Everybody would take a letter, put them together, make blocks out of it, and then go on printing. It was huge as a problem. So the number of people who were employed in this typesetting kind of printing presses was very large at that time. Okay, but now you see, look at the printing press. Okay, this is the New York Times. One guy is enough to print about 2 million copies every day, the newspaper. Right? Everything is programmed, he just comes here and clicks some buttons and then it gets printed. You look at the manpower, the requirement of the manpower, the kind of knowledge they required and the knowledge kind of they required. So this was called as Industrial Revolution 0.0. Then we came Industrial Revolution 1.0. This is the invention of the steam engine. Once when I was in school, my teacher asked, I was not concentrating on the school, I was looking somewhere else, so the teacher wanted to get my attention, and the teacher asked me, okay, who invented the steam engine? I didn't understand the question, so I said, Watt, sir. Then he said, very good, right answer. Okay, that's what happened, because it was James Watt who invented the steam engine, and then this was a big revolution. Because the steam engine, now it enabled people to go from one place to other, far away. Many people could go, and also transport a lot of equipment, lot of stuff, goods, everything. So that completely changed. That means people who were working in their own regions now started going out far away places. Okay, once you went far away places, okay, you need different kind of art, right? You need a different language, you need a different culture. You're going and encountering a different world. So you need a different training. And when you go there, and he says, I want to work in a factory, that guy will tell, how do I know that you know how to work in a factory? Then he said, so then they started making schools and certificates started. Because now somebody has to establish that, somebody has to assure and tell him, look, yeah, he has been trained. And that is enough. Otherwise, you cannot go on testing everywhere. So this kind of thing started some concept of schooling, okay, starting at that time. So we know, again, these industries, the locomotive engine making was a big industry. Thousands and thousands of people were involved. We've all heard of Detroit, right? Detroit became the capital of automobiles in the world because a lot of automobile industries started in Detroit in this revolution 1.0. But see, now again, there's hardly anybody in the locomotive industry. Okay, everything is controlled by different kinds of machines, right? This was Industrial Revolution 1.0. Now we had Industrial Revolution 2.0. And this was the turning point in industrialization. This was Henry Ford's car manufacturing. Okay, the conveyor belt system. The conveyor belt system. Now what you see, you look at this car, this was Henry Ford, the great industrialist who transformed the whole world. And then this was the way the cars were manufactured. That means there was somebody who was specialized in the carburetor, somebody in the wheel, somebody in the accelerator, somebody in the steering wheel. So we needed specialists now. We just didn't want ordinary mechanics, right? We needed something more. So you needed specialization. And that again changed the way we were looking at training people, right? So this is what I think many of you have seen this wonderful movie called as Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. Okay, all of you have seen this movie? If not, please see this movie tonight. It's one of the most beautiful movies, which was a satire of the Industrial Revolution at that time, of how complex life became because of the Industrial Revolution. And you all know Charlie Chaplin is one of the greatest artists. Okay, he was such a fantastic guy. Especially this last picture. People who have seen this could remember this picture that when he started eating, the machine was put for him to eat, and suddenly something goes wrong with the machine, and suddenly the expressions on the face of Charlie Chaplin have remained in me for the last 35 years now. I mean, it's been such an amazing actor he was. Once, and he hardly spoke in the whole movie. He would never speak. He was a silent actor, right? He was amazing. Once Einstein and Charlie Chaplin met in an occasion. So Einstein met him for the first time and he said, oh, Mr. Chaplin, I'm so happy, okay, so glad that you are such a wonderful guy and people admire you. Even though you don't speak any single word, people admire you so much. So Einstein replied very beautifully to Charlie Chaplin. He said, mine is not great. Your achievement is bigger, Mr. Einstein. You speak so many things people don't understand, still they admire you. So that's what Charlie Chaplin's sense of humor was. It was amazing. Okay, this was Charlie Chaplin's day when this whole thing started changing. So what was required? This is called as Education 1.0. Okay, with the Industrial Revolution 2.0 was Education 1.0. What was Education 1.0? You look at this beautiful cartoon, right? This fellow has a pentagon face. This is a rectangle. This is a pentagon. So this is a hexagon, right? This is a triangle. Any face you take, this is the school teacher, this is the school. You put through the school and make every face round. Means you may be anything, but what we want it to be produced because industry wanted that. You please understand. And that was education. So, but friends, let me tell you, our education is still like this. Right? We take these people, we have the same syllabus, the same classroom, the same teacher, the same examination system, which will decide whether you are good or bad. That's why I remember in the morning I told you about Einstein. Einstein said that he was such an unsuccessful student, but an extremely successful scientist because he told that I was a fish and my school expected me to climb a tree. And so because I couldn't climb the tree, all my student life I thought that I was stupid. I was an idiot. I couldn't understand. See, this happened to all of us. right? Whenever in the classroom, we think the teacher is going on teaching something, so we start thinking, I didn't understand. There are the 2, 3, nice children who sit in the front bench, and for everything they are putting the head like this, and whenever teacher asks the question, they will stand up and answer the question. So all the people in the back will think, my God, I am stupid, right? They think that I'm stupid, I can't do this. But see, I told you, after Einstein started thinking on his own, okay, just about 12, 13 years after coming out of school, he became such a great scientist. The idea, friends, is you need to identify what you are. And that is very, very important. I'll talk about this a little bit more. So this kind of education system was very, very restricted. Okay. So this was called as education 1.0. Okay. Look at this. This is the Industrial Revolution 3.0. The car industry now. Amazing industry, right? Car technology is outstanding. We easily go and drive in a car or complain something of that sort. But the technology is fantastic. Even the smallest things. There are nearly about 3.4 lakh components inside a car. They are all put together with precision. It's amazing. And look at the technology. And see how many people are working in that industry? Nobody. Right? It is all mechanical, cranes which are working, robotic arms which are doing all the job. There is nobody who is standing there and doing the car. Look at that. When Ford's car, everybody was there trying to do that. So this whole transformation came. Toyota factory produces 43,000 cars every day. Every day, 43,000 cars. Right? Our own Maruti factory produces about 9,200 cars every day. Okay. The Chrysler produces nearly about 36,000 cars every day. Every day, you can imagine how many seconds are there, so how many seconds are required to make a car. Now tell me, if they had put you and me into the job, okay, how many cars would we produce, right? Because I will say I want to go for lunch now, or I will say I am not well today, I can't do this, okay, or I tell him my salary is so much, so I will work only so much, I don't want to do anything. Okay, I have a fight with my colleague and tell them why this fellow is like that, so I don't want to work today. So that's why they said we'll replace all human beings with these robots which will listen to whatever we say. Okay, that was the idea, and then we were all, because they would do it so efficiently, they would do it so accurately, and they would do without tiring. Okay, these machines would work, and so the precision improved, precision of the components improved, the turnover improved, etc., and that became this. So now, of course, to run these machines, these robots, you needed human beings, but you needed a different skill. Now you don't need mechanics who are tightening the board; somebody else will tighten the board. So what are the kind of skills which are required to make such kind of an industrial revolution? Is the whole challenge, right? So friends, with that, as I said, in the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st century, just like industrial requirements changed, the educational requirements also changed. So you had, just like industrial revolution 1.0, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, education has also changed from 1.0, 2.0 to 3.0. Okay, now let us see, where are we? Okay, where are we? We still believe, I strongly believe that we are still in education 1.0 and the world is looking at education 3.0. Now, I'm talking about the developed world. So now, it is time for us to change. Okay, how do we change is what we'll talk about as we go along. Okay, these are some of the people who contributed, who actually found out how to align education and the industry requirements. So they just aligned so that the education went on changing as the industrial requirement was there. So this is what all is. This is a table which tells what is the difference between education 1.0, 2.0 and 3.0. I will not go into the details because it will take too much time explaining this, but I just want to tell you something. See now, location of these institutions. Earlier it used to be in buildings. Okay, education 2.0 is building and online, which we have already started now. And the third one, in education 3.0, everywhere. You don't need an institution, right? Education can happen everywhere. The teacher, okay, who is the teacher? Teachers were licensed professionals, like all of us. Okay, we have a certificate and a job, and we say teachers. So we were teaching first 1.0, 2.0. In 3.0, we may not be necessary at all. Education can be everywhere. Knowledge can come from everywhere. So this is very important for us to understand. Things will change. So a lot of things change because of the system of the societal changes. That is very important. That's why I keep telling the teacher's job is at stake. Let me tell you, if we are not careful, soon the teachers will become a part of history, and they will also become an extinct species and sitting with the dinosaurs, right? Because the reason is that If technology can give the education which is required in a much better way, if a professor from Harvard can teach physics, who will listen to the professor from Harvard? Right? Unless a professor from Harvard can become a Harvard professor. So, what is this change which is going to happen? Now, look at the organization. I will look at the budget of the higher education in Karnataka. Okay, 92.3% of the budget of higher education in Karnataka goes for salaries. 5 or 6% goes for buildings. And imagine 92.5 plus 5 or 6%, how much you have left for education? There is hardly any money left for education. This is suffered by all private institutions. The managements are struggling to pay the salaries for everybody. That's why everybody is happy to put in guest lecturers. You can get the work done in 1/4, but people are not worried about the quality. Okay, this is something which is going to happen in the future if there are no good teachers. An ordinary teacher and a good teacher will be replaced by technology. They will be replaced by technology, in my view, and it's not very far away. It is very, very real that it will happen. But only a great teacher will survive. And how do I define a great teacher? A great teacher is somebody who can emotionally connect with the student. See, look, with 5G coming, okay, the 5G technology coming, you can form a holographic image of people. A professor from Cambridge can come here, walk around, and give a class. Right? You can walk around. Okay, this will happen very soon with 5G technology. The holographic images can come. And if that happens, okay, he's a very knowledgeable man with very good technology. He has all the information. He has made amazing classes, animations, pictures, everything is there. Then where is the role for an ordinary teacher? And he can replay. You can press the replay button and make the teacher 10 times. Ask your teachers to teach for the second time. You will understand. So they are busy trying to cover the syllabus. I keep asking the teachers, what is so obscene or dirty about the syllabus that we are trying to cover it? Our business is not to cover the syllabus, it is to open the syllabus to the students. But you look at teachers, you look at principals, management, have you covered the syllabus? Have you covered the syllabus? Okay, that is the most important thing. I have a very nice story here. Okay, a couple of stories I'll tell you. There is a boy who scored only 5% marks in mathematics. 5% marks in mathematics, the teacher called him onto the stage and told him, you're a useless fellow, good for nothing, you don't work hard, diabetes, everything. He started quoting, and then he gave him the mark card and he said, get the signature of your father on this mark card. So this fellow said, sir, bada sir, please bada. Okay. Then he said, okay, if you can't go and get the signature, tell your father to come to the college. Nana, I will explain to him. So he said, tell your father. He said, sir, bada sir, I'm not. So he said, okay, it's okay. Then I will only come to your house in the evening and get the signature of your father. Then that fellow fell to the feet of the teacher and said, sir, I'm bada for country. So this fellow asked, hey, what is the problem? Are you so much scared of your father? He said, sir, it's not because of me, I'm telling it for you. Because when I tell this to my father, my father will tell, who is that fellow who taught him for 1 year and you get only 5 marks? What did he teach you for 1 year? This is the challenge. So my friends think, it's very important that the teaching is not the only responsibility of the teacher. It is not about teaching. It is about learning. We have not taught unless the students have learned. That I think is the major responsibility a teacher has to take on his back. There is also another small story. One guy was walking with a dog on the road. Okay, he got a new dog, a new breed. So his friend came up and he asked him, oh, did you buy a new dog? He said, yeah, I got a new dog. Okay, oh, which breed? Oh, Beagle. Oh, fantastic, very intelligent dog. Okay, very intelligent dog. Okay, then what have you taught him? Right? We asked him, what have you taught him? So he said, anything special? Because we shake hands, roll, bark, this is something every dog does. So what is so special about your dog? What did you teach him? So he said, I taught him to whistle. Right? Dog whistling, I have never heard of this. So this fellow said, okay, let's show it. So they both went on telling the dog, hey, whistle. Right? So he didn't whistle. The dog didn't whistle. So this fellow said, what is this here? You said that you taught him to whistle and did not whistle. He said, I taught him but he did not learn. What should I do? Right? This is the kind of education we are going through, right? We covered the syllabus, but the students have not learned anything. So it's very important that teaching does not happen if the learning does not happen. So the proof of the teaching is in the learning. It is not in the teaching. Okay, that change has to come. Otherwise, teachers will become irrelevant to education very soon. Let me tell you this. Okay, Look at this education 3.0. This is an amazing concept. Okay, can you get a glass of water? Okay, if you have it, it's okay. Okay, so education 3.0 is something very, very different. Now, in education 3.0, the teacher is not on the stage, not a sage standing on stage. Okay, he has gone to the side. You can see here this teacher, he has gone to the side. He only becomes a guide in the guidance. Okay, he becomes only a resource guide. Because see, when we were students, we all know that we did not get information from anywhere. It was only coming to the teacher. All the information was coming to the teacher or to that small stupid library we had. Okay, some books inside the library. Otherwise, there was no knowledge. There was no place for us to get knowledge. But now it is not like that. Right? Now knowledge is everywhere, in everybody's hands. Earlier we used to tell, he had all the knowledge at the tip of his fingers. I did not understand why did they say tip of the fingers. But now I know, with the mobile phone, all the whole world's knowledge is at the tip of your fingers. Right? You can get any knowledge anywhere in the world. It's outstanding information. Huge amount of information is possible by wherever you are. Right? This kind of information that is there, what is the role of a teacher? The whole role completely changes. Knowledge is available to the student, but the teacher has to ensure that the student uses that knowledge when it exists. Right? Because there is also some very bad knowledge which also exists. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Okay. So, friends, he has to utilize he has the knowledge. So, where are the teachers, right? So, where are the teachers? The teachers are everywhere. You want an expert advice? You can contact by an email to a professor in Tokyo. Right? You can easily do it. You don't, earlier we had to go only to the teacher to find out where is the information. But now you can write an email. You can write 100 emails and 10 of them will respond to you. Okay? You will get the information from wherever. So, you can see here, and where becomes the curriculum? What do you study? What you like you study. It's not necessary that you study what I tell you. Right? You will say, I don't want to study this, I want to study this. You do it. Right? That is what will happen with education. And that is what is happening now. I'll come to that in a while. But very important, please understand, everything changes. And the learners also become teachers. Right? It's not that the teachers are the only one who teach. Your friends can teach, your family can teach, your society can teach, your internet can teach, everywhere you can learn. So, knowledge acquisition, again, institutions can become irrelevant if we don't know how to reimagine education. It is very important that we need to reimagine education, and that, I think, how do we do it is a big challenge. Okay, so, friends, this is civilization. You know that amazing civilization transformation has happened for such a long time. There were technologies, we defined civilization based on materials. Okay, we call them as a stone age, okay, ceramic age, semiconductor age, plastic age, a lot of garbage. All sorts of things have depended on technology. This whole dependence on technology has happened very slowly in the past. And the period of these civilizations has shrunk every time. And new technologies have become very, very small. Right? Now the question is, friends, there is 3 amazing technologies which have come together now. Okay, 3 amazing technologies: the nanotechnology, the biotechnology, and the artificial intelligence. These are the 3 out of the world technologies. These are something very, very different from the usual technology and the engineering we were talking about. This kind of outstanding information with these 3 technologies is going to transform the way we are going to live in the next 10-15 years. What we are living today will look very, very medieval 10-15 years from now. Not too far away, let me tell you. Not too far away. And now the question is, are the students ready for the change? Are the institutions ready for this kind of a change? Have we made enough change in the system, okay, so that we can adapt to these kind of changes? I think is the real challenge for all of us. Okay, so friends, whether your institution does it or not, your teachers does it or not, it is very important for you, the youngsters. I'll give you one example of this combination of these 3. In the journal called Science, Science is one of the most important journals of science. If you all know, Science and Nature are the 2 top journals in the world. In the journal issue, 2019 July issue of Science, there is an article by Cordio and Wood. Cordio is from Cambridge and Wood is from MIT. And they have done a collaborative work, research work, I'm telling you. And the title of the paper says, Death of Death by the year 2045. Please understand the title. Death of death by the year 2045. That means science is going to conquer death very soon, my friends. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people with a lot of biology and everything. Now they have understood what is telomeres. Telomeres, which are around the DNAs, they determine the aging factor. Now we have seen aging as a disease. We have not seen, earlier we used to think that this is something which is well defined by somewhere else, right? But it's not like that. Science has now proved that aging is a disease. So now we can probably correct this with genetic engineering, we can correct this disease. So probably 2045 onwards, okay, by that time probably I will not be alive, okay, but maybe all of you will be alive. So you can celebrate your 200th birthday, maybe you are married when you are 500 years old, have children when you are 18, I don't know what you will do. But this is possible. Natural death cannot happen. Okay, you can control this. And this is not science fiction. This is not science fiction. This is real science which proves that this has happened. There are so many beautiful things which have happened because of these technologies. Okay, amazing. We heard so many about spitronics today. There are so many. And not other things, let me just give you other examples. Now, China, 18% of the court cases are done by artificial intelligence. There is no judge who gives a decision, right? 18%. And they plan in the next 5 years to reach 50% of the cases. So they will send the judges also home. They'll send the teachers home, they'll send the judges home, everybody will go home because technology will take over. And that is the power of artificial intelligence, my friends. That is the power of nanotechnology. That is the power of biotechnology. All these three are in very, very infant stages now. What we talk about nanotechnology, the examples we give of technology is going to be child's play in the next 10 years. There are going to be big things which are happening because of these three fields. So now, friends, it is time for us to get ready for this. As a nation, as an individual, as an institution, it's very important we really think and we reimagine India with these kind of changes which we are about to see. Again, there are some, in India, the big change came when we involved the new economic policy. When we had what is called as the MPG, okay, liberalization, privatization and globalization. So these three things happened. That became a turning point in education in India. Because what had happened was, what do we mean by globalization? That means educational institutions also can be globalized. That means I can go and open an institution in America or a European can come and start an institution in India. So if you want to do that, you want to bring equivalence or you want to do a comparison, you wanted a measurement. Yeah. When you wanted a measurement, that is when the requirement for the NAC started. NAC started because we needed a measurement to find out the levels of institutions. Right? Now also again same thing. I keep telling, see, to test the knowledge there is examination. Right? But unfortunately now, we prepare the knowledge for the examination. Right? It has become upside down. Similarly, we see this test of an institution by using NAC. But now for the NAC, you are manipulating all the data. Right? This is all very upside down. We are looking at these problems in a very upside down, and it is time for us to think in a very different way. So, okay, there are so many other things I will not because of lack of time. But see, this is the path of educational changes in India. We have taken many changes, right from 1948 when we started education. Many things have happened. Not that it has happened suddenly. Nothing has happened suddenly. Everything has happened. Many changes. One of the most important was Kothari Commission. Again, a physicist. Okay, D.S. Kothari was the chairman of the UGC who came with the Kothari Commission. And today's new education policy, more than nearly 50% of it is still what Kothari said. Okay, it's very important. It still said that means we have not implemented it efficiently. That's why the same thing has to be told even after 40 years, 50 years. And that is the unfortunate thing. So we need to think about these whole changes which are necessary. Okay, so the NEP plans, the new education policy, right? It is inevitable for any government to do this now. Because otherwise we will become irrelevant. And that is how the NEP came. In this gloom of COVID, when we were very sad, we didn't know what to do, we were losing hope in education, suddenly came this new education policy. I think it was a good, fresh thinking for us. We started thinking, what is this new education policy? Some people fought for it, some people against it. That's okay, that is good. But we started thinking about the new education policy. I think that was terribly important thing which happened in the. And we know the plan for the new education policy. I'm sorry you can't see the letters everywhere, so I will also not spend too much time on this. There is a long path which is defined for the new education policy. It cannot happen successfully in 1 year. It is a plan until about 2040. There's a plan up to 20. Only in 2040 the whole education policy will be completely implemented. That means many things we keep doing, we keep doing mistakes, we correct from them, go on adjusting, but ultimately it will be completely implemented only in 2040. Even the new education policy doesn't doesn't say that in this year you can do it. But we are okay. So that is what the whole path is. So what we need to think about, students, is the graduate attributes. Means after you become a graduate or a postgraduate, what are the abilities you need to have? What should the abilities? It is not the marks card. Right? I'm glad I'm in this St. Aloysius College, which gives a lot of importance to other all-round activities and all-round development. But not all institutions are like this. Right? So it's very limited. So what are the graduate attributes? At the end of the graduate, what do you have to have? So you should know how to think independently in your discipline. Okay, they are excused because they don't have enough knowledge. But once you are a graduate, whatever you say has to have value. So eventually you see, graduate adaptability, you take it from here, put it anywhere, after the graduation you put it in their company, you should be able to adapt to the circumstances quickly. You will not tell, I did not learn this in my syllabus. That's not the point. The ability to adapt should come there. Then you have, the students should have, or the graduate should have confidence to face any kind of world. Again, the confidence which comes from expecting or enjoying both success and failure. How do you learn from failure? How do you utilize success? I think these are the attributes I think the students have to learn. Then creativity. How do you become creative with knowledge? We use the word creativity very loosely. Okay, it's not something. Creativity is not scoring marks, let me tell you. It is the worst form of creativity. Okay, creativity is when you use the knowledge you have to do something out of the box that nobody thought about it. And that is creativity. So creativity cannot be taught. Okay, you can create all the circumstances around that for a child, and the child or the student or the graduate himself or herself, okay, starts thinking you. So creativity is an individual process. It has nothing to do with an institutional growth. So how do we do that? And last is, as I said, credibility. Whenever a graduate says something, okay, he or she says something, there is value for it. People will understand that he is talking the right thing. He cannot be talking the wrong thing. He is not misguiding. Okay, that credibility has to come in. So these are the attributes a graduate has to get. It is not only the marks card. I keep calling people with marks as the real Marxists. Right? So it's not about that. Right? It is about developing all these characters which are necessary for the student, which is the most important thing for education. Right? So there are so many other things. I'll jump all these things, but you should understand that is what education is all about. Now education is not about just information, not the textbook and the examination. It's going to have much beyond that. Right? So now, see, now earlier classes look like this. Right? You all know this. We have all slept like this in the class. Okay, and so somebody, and here the teacher thinks, this fellow teacher in the higher education thinks, my fellow friends, I'm sure my lecture has made you think. Okay, and what these boys are telling, yeah, I'm thinking about my girlfriend, I'm thinking about my movie, okay, I'm thinking about how to sleep, and somebody is not even listening to it. That is the kind of classes we have. Teachers think that they have done a wonderful class, but the students know how much they have to suffer. Right? It's very important for us to understand that whole education system has to be very different. Okay, so now there are some teachers who start thinking, so maybe there is a better way of teaching. Right? Maybe there is a better way of teaching. I remember in 1982, I joined IIT Delhi. Okay, IIT Delhi, and my friend Satyendra Kumar joined as an assistant professor there, and I joined as a research scientist there. We joined in 1982, once upon a time. We joined, and then my Satyendra Kumar and he were good friends, so whenever I get time, I will go to his room or he will come to my room and we will chat. And one day I was in Satyendra Kumar's room, when 20 students from his first year, he was teaching classical mechanics to IIT students. So 20 students came to his room and said, sir, we wanted to talk to you. Okay. Then he told them, yeah, tell me, what do you want? Then they said, I was sitting there. So they said, let sir go, then we will tell you. Because I was sitting there. He said, no, he's my good friend, tell me whatever, it's okay, even if he's there, you can tell me. So they said, sir, we had a lot of interest in classical mechanics until you started teaching. After you started teaching, we are losing interest in classical mechanics. Right? So there's a request that, sir, either do two things, either change the teacher or give us attendance, we will do much better. Otherwise, we will lose interest in it. See, how many teachers we wanted to tell this? Think about it. I wanted to tell it to all my, maybe some 90 teachers. I wanted to tell them. I never knew, because like Einstein, I also thought that, oh, they are very knowledgeable, they know everything. I was only stupid, I cannot understand. But here, there were some students who had the courage to tell, okay, what you are teaching is not useful to me. Okay, you need to do something different. So, this is what will happen. So, there is a better way of doing this. So, it's time for us to learn the better way of doing education. So, there is something which is most important is called as pedagogy. Pedagogy is the way you convey to reach the students. It is not about how you teach, it is the question of how you reach. How do I teach the way the students want to learn? So very important to learn, to understand what the students want before a teacher can teach. You look at the movies, right? For example, there are two kinds of movies, right? One is a movie which is an award-winning movie, which none of us will go, right? Nobody will go to that movie, but it will win the award. And then there is another kind of movie where all of us go, box office hits, all of us go, but it will never win an award, right? Now the question is, similarly there is education, there is teaching. There is a teaching where the teacher is a great scholar. He comes and gives the lecture because he is very knowledgeable man. He comes and gives a lecture, and the students are sitting amazed at this fellow's knowledge. They are really admiring, but they don't understand anything in the class. So he thinks I am a great scholar, okay, and he is doing the biggest injustice to education. Because the teacher's job is not to show off his knowledge. His teacher's job is to connect with the students and communicate the ideas, the concepts. I think that is very important. So now, look at that. Yeah, very important. Yeah. So now, on the other end, you have this box office hit movies. You know, what does a box office hit movies do? Okay, there, the director, the producer, his team, they all sit together and decide who is going to watch my movie. Right? Who will watch the movie? Then they said, oh, probably children people between 20 and 40 years will watch this movie. So then they will write down what are the different things the people of 20 and 40 years want. Okay, what do they want to see? Okay, what is their age? What is their requirement? Then they will put that into the masala in the movie. Right? Because 20 years they want to see a boy chasing a girl, okay, and then another girl coming a triangle, quadrangle, whatever, and then the hero, villain fighting, and they want to see the dress change every moment, every time it goes around the tree, one dress will change. Okay, all this the people want to see, and that's why you produce a movie like that, and that's why it becomes a box office hit. Right? Now the question is, how many of us as teachers have thought who our audience is? If there are 18-year-old, 20-year-old people sitting in my class, okay, what do they require? And what do they require? And so how I have to teach, depending on their requirement. We never think about it. We think that this is the way I know, I am going to teach this way. It is the business of the student to learn. That's why, my friends, you know, students cannot learn only in the colleges. In the colleges, they just watch and go, and they have to go home and study. Or they go to tuitions and study. Only then they will learn something of that. So unfortunately, that is happening. I'll come to that in a while. This is very important. So, okay, these are all pedagogies, lot of theories, lot of knowledge is there. The last 4 years, I will enjoy looking at so much knowledge has been gone into psychology, cognitive neurology. You know, so many beautiful things are there in education, and that helps. And that I think every teacher should understand. A teacher is not only about understanding physics or chemistry or mathematics or sociology or history or Kannada or English. It is about understanding the students. Okay. That thing, if we don't do, we cannot be good teachers. Okay, right. Again, there are a lot of theories. I'll jump all these things. Okay, here, see, this is this. See, every human being has three things. One is a head, the other is a heart, and then you have a hand. The head thinks, the heart feels, and the hand does. Right? So now the question is, that is what we all do. That is how we learn. Right? Unless we build this connection between the head to the heart to the hand, we cannot do anything sensible. So the question is, see, of course we all know ultimately science students, we know nothing happens in the heart other than the beat, but still, you know, just for everything happens in the brain itself, even the feelings are in the brain. But let us assume there is something called the heart which is about emotions. So now the question is, there are something. So knowledge, you have to connect with emotions, and then you have to connect with actions. So only when we connect these three is the knowledge going to become very, very essential. So there are a lot of knowledge, again, cognitive, which is called as cognitive, what the brain does is cognitive, is called as a cognitive domain. Then what the heart does is called as the affective domain, and then what you do is called as the psychomotor domain. So these are some beautiful things which are there in education, which you would like to do it. And then of course how the brain works. You know that everybody has about 80 billion neurons. Everybody, whether it's Einstein or a stupid fellow like me or everybody has about 80 billion neurons. It is only the question, and everybody thinks all the time. Is there a few seconds which we don't think? We are all thinking. But the question, what is the difference between Einstein and us, is that I get distracted and Einstein doesn't get distracted. My thought is not permanent. I think about one thing and next moment I forget and I start doing something else. I'll be doing something and suddenly some beautiful girl comes there, I'll start looking at the girl and then forget what I'm doing. So, but next time would do is very different, that you would be focused on what is for the next 15, 20 years. And that is how they are different. That's all they are different. Okay? And because why they are different is, for me, examination is a burden. Kashtappattu othillo, ishtapattu odala. Right? So we have not connected the brain and the heart. If we connect the brain and the heart, and with our knowledge, with our cognitive knowledge, once we connect that, then we will enjoy the hard work. Right? Which is all true. You take a physics book, okay, Ashcroft and Merlin, the beautiful solid-state book, start reading. I bought it because it's a very famous book, but I couldn't understand anything in that book when I was a student, right? I would keep it as a very nice pillow and use it for a very good pillow. The size is very good for a pillow, right size for a pillow. So this was happening because I never thought that I should feel the science, right? I was only trying to remember the science. And that is the problem with science and technology. So anyway, I'll jump over to it. Maybe I should maybe wait another 5 minutes. I think I should finish because of course I have a long story to tell. Again, I keep telling. I told sir that the father was asking me how long will you speak. I told him usually I speak until 50% of the people are sleeping. Okay. When I see 50% of the eyes closed, I stop my talk, which sometimes happens in 15 minutes and sometimes it happens in 4 hours. So it depends on you when you're sleeping, but I will stop here in the next 5 minutes. I know it's not easy in the evening, but just tell me, this curve is very important. This is called as the learning curve. In the x-axis, okay, we have the effort you put for learning, and the y-axis is the knowledge you gain. Right? We all think that the more the effort we put, okay, the knowledge will go on increasing. Right? Our syllabus, our curriculum, our everything is designed based on this curve. That every 25% I teach, I cover 25% of the syllabus. 50% I teach, I cover 50% of the syllabus. 75, 100%, then a final exam. So this is what we think. But psychologists have understood that we don't learn like this. Okay, we learn like this. Okay, this is studied in electronics, which is called as a neural network time series. Neural networks, all the artificial neural networks work on this philosophy. This is a sigmoidal graph, it is not a linear graph. So what is this? You see here, you put a lot of effort in the first 40% of your effort, there is hardly any learning. Right? But then once the concepts are very clear, if you invest your time very sensibly in this first 40%, you will see that you have terribly fast learning at the end. Right? So this is, again, I would require at least 1 hour to explain this curve to really understand what it is, but just think about it later when you have time. Okay? But it doesn't happen right now because we don't think it is like this and we go on teaching like this. The real learning is happening is only so much. So you see, you think about it, every class you sit, okay, please understand, whatever the teacher tells you, learn only about 10 to 15%, not more than that. Right? You all agree? Okay, and only 10 to 15% goes into your brain because the teacher has not understood that the teaching is sigmoidal. Right? He thinks it is linear. That's why the linear thing will give only 10 to 15%. Then to get that knowledge, we have to go on by hearting here or go to the tuition to reach that 100% knowledge. That's why I told in the morning, we don't want to become workaholics. Right? Nobody should become workaholic. See, if 8 hours, okay, you have studied in the college, it is more than enough to become the best in the world. But unfortunately, our good students, how do they work? They get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, do the homework, go to the college, come back, just take 5 minutes to break, then they go to the tuition, and again in the night they will come and do the homework at the tuition, they sleep at 12 o'clock. These are our good students. Right? Unfortunate. Right? I was having a dinner with Sachin Tendulkar. Okay, he had a penicillin problem a long time ago. At that time, he was practicing, coming back to this. Then I told him, how much do you practice? I asked him. Then he said, I go to the gym with my trainer for 2 hours in the morning. I work very hard, he said, first of all. I said, how hard is what? Then he said, I go to the gym in the morning with my trainer for 2 hours and evening for 2 hours in the next with my coach. Okay, and that's all. So 4 hours and you are the best in the world. And look at our students. 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, and they are still worst at the bottom of the world. So what is happening? Right? That means his coach and his trainer know how to tell him how to learn things. Right? If we, the teachers, we all have exceptions. There are some exceptionally good teachers who inspire us, who teach us, and they are the ones who tell us how to do about it. But most of the teachers are not serious about this profession. That is the reason why these changes take place. Anyway, again, this is something called as group learning levels. There are a lot of debate in this. How we learn is We remember things, that we understand, that we apply somewhere, we analyze, evaluate, and create. These are the 6 cognitive domain levels of learning, right? But the question is, you look at our education system, we are only in the first level, remembering level. We have not even gone to understanding level. You don't understand. I told you in the morning, okay, I have got a lot of marks, I have got gold medals, I have got a lot of marks without understanding the subject. And that is the beauty of our education system, that we can get a lot of marks even without understanding. Right? Because if you can just remember, you can get a lot of marks. That is very sad, right? But ultimately, you have to go. Now the question is, how do we apply Bloom's taxonomy in our teaching and learning process? How do we go on taking the students from here, and leave them here, so that they can create the knowledge, they can create the information. And this is the real challenge, and that is how our syllabus, our curriculum, our classrooms, our pedagogy, our evaluation system has to be designed according to that. And that is what we aspire to do in the coming days, right? So, okay. Now, another interesting thing by Howard Gardner, he says there's something called as a multiple intelligence theory. The concept of IQ is now outdated. Everybody thought that there was something, everybody called it one kind of intelligence, which is called as IQ, the intelligence quotient. But we know now IQ is not important. Howard Gardner said that there are 8 kinds of intelligence. In fact, there is an argument between 8 and 9. But there are 8 kinds of intelligences we all possess. Okay. In somebody, some are more dominant than the others. What are the different kinds? Again, this will require 1 hour to explain what these are. Please go and Google these things and read about this. There are beautiful information which is possible. Okay. Some people are spatial, means visual. They see things and learn. Okay. They can see it visually. Some people are linguistic. They learn when you talk to them. Okay. By talking or communication, they are able to learn. Some are intrapersonal. Somebody, you read something, but he has to sit and think on his own. Only then he will understand. And some are interpersonal. Some people learn when they are discussing with others, with friends. Okay. And then some are logical and mathematical. They want every step to be logical to understand something. Then there are people who are musical, means rhythmic. Everything has to be rhythmic for them. Only when it is rhythmic they understand the subject. And then there are body kinesthetic who want action. They want to do something, and only then they can learn. So all of us have all these characters, but for some are dominant and some are recessive. So you will not find all of them. But each of us have 1 or 2 types of intelligence which are dominated in all of us. Now it is important for us, for students to identify what they are capable of. It is important for the teachers to guide them what is their learning process. Now in a classroom of 50 students, right, there are all kinds of 9 intelligences. So how can I teach for only 1 intelligence? Right? How can I teach in only 1 method? I cannot do that. So I have to teach for 4 different kinds of methods if I want to become a successful teacher. So how do I do? So I can divide 2 of them into 1 factor and go on teaching everything in 4 different types. And that is the ability of a teacher. It is not about conveying the information, but how do I transform the information into the way our students understand. So a bit different kinds of abilities of students. Then you will not feel that you are a fish, you are climbing a tree. Okay, you will teach them as a fish, you will teach them as a donkey, you will teach them as a monkey. Okay, that kind of teaching, if you do it, even a donkey can become an intelligent person, a monkey can also become an intelligent person, and the fish can also become an intelligent person. So that is what the art of teaching is all about. Earlier we used to think that this is an art, that some people are born to teach like it. But now we know that it is not like it. These are skills to be developed. Okay, if you can learn the skills, anybody can become a great teacher. Okay, if they can know, because now cognitive neurology is a great field of science. When you understand how neural networks work, how brain understands things, etc. Beautiful knowledge is there. Once we apply that, now we know how to teach. And that change in education has to take place in the coming time. Okay, these are something. Again, there's another thing. In the class, we talk about mood, right? When today I have the mood or I don't have the mood, right? So the moods come and go. And these are determined what are called as neurotransmitters. The serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin, endorphins. These are something to decide our moods. Okay, how do I create the mood in the class? The teacher's first business in the first 5 minutes is to create the mood by making the secretion of all these endorphins. Once they are transmitted, then the students become interested in the class. That's why it is always important to start with a story or a joke or a music or something of that sort and take the students back. Otherwise, there was this previous mathematics teacher who bored all of us. So we were sitting like this. Next teacher comes, physics teacher comes and say, today we will learn about the Schrödinger's equation. And you will say, oh my God, another fellow has come to torture me. So we go on losing it. The idea of a teacher is to, how do we excite them? Okay, how do we make this student who are sitting like that, open his eyes and listen to our class. I think that is the challenge for a teacher, and this is very important for us when you want to become successful as a teacher. So there are learning pyramids, different methods of teaching, and you see here, lecture mode only teaches 5%. In the lecture mode, I told, in fact, I was very generous, I told 10 to 15%. But actually, psychology studies show that it is only about 5%. In the lecture, we learn only 5%. Because there are different methods of teaching. The best is to teach others. You learn when you teach others. You ask all the teachers here. They have learned the subject only when they started teaching, not when they passed the examinations, right? Including me. Only when we started teaching, we understood what it was. Okay, so that revelation comes. So similarly, we have to make students teach within each other. And that is how they will learn much better. So how do we get the students to come and teach? Okay, inside the classrooms, the new pedagogies of teaching. And that is very important. Again, let me jump on this. And this, my father was talking about multidisciplinary. But see, it is not just multidisciplinary. There is something called interdisciplinary, intradisciplinary, multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary. How do we bring all this into education? How do I bring all these kind of things into my class? Is the challenge for the teacher. See, once you are teaching physics, first 2 years it's the same subject. After that 15, 20 years you are teaching the same thing. Right? But that's not the point. The point is the ability of a teacher is to go on changing the style of teaching every year depending on the kind of students he gets and the kind of interest they have and the mood they are in. So you need to create that mood and use all these techniques. These are all called as pedagogical techniques which you want to teach. Okay, so that is the beginning of the new education policy. Okay, gives you this opportunity. The new education policy, again, I don't want to go into all these things. You all know this very well now, and you already implemented it. But I just want to tell you, okay, these are all some things you all know. Different paths, how you can go, different paths you can go. But what is important is, okay. So credit transfer now it is not about examination. It's about credits. Right? You can get the credit from anywhere. You need not get it in this college. You can go and get the credit from another college. You can get it from online. 40% of the credits can come online. So you don't like this teacher, you don't have to take his class. You go to another college and take that credit. Because what is more important is the students learning. It is not about the teachers teaching. Right? So these kind of things are there. Again, there are so many things which again I don't have time. And we talked about this structure and all. Again, I don't have. But ultimately, education should have core subject knowledge, experiential learning, research experience for undergraduate, soft skills like communication, technical skills which are required for them to make a job, and then values and ethics. So we need to combine all this in our education. Okay, to combine all this in education, it is not that we put one moral education teacher, one English teacher, the physics teacher himself has to do everything. Okay, he has to teach ethics, he has to teach language, he has to integrate teaching all this, and that is what is required from the teachers. So how do we do this is again another challenge. Of course, I don't have time to explain what I understand a little bit of this. So, okay, anyway, more importantly, again, there are so many things. So ultimately, the new education policy says that the students decide what to study, when to study, where to study, and how to study. Full stop. The students decide. The institutions and the teachers don't decide. Right? We are there, as teachers, we are there just to serve you. Right? It is because you are there, we get our salaries. Right? So it is your business to demand what you want. Okay? And it is our business to give you what you want. And that opportunity comes in the new education policy. And that is the change which you will see in the next coming few years. Okay? You will see that. Now we still don't know how to do the new education policy. We are struggling with it. We are worried about the workload. We are worried about adjusting the timetable. We are adjusting so many things are there. But I'm sure slowly we will solve this. Because ultimately, every teacher's desire is to see that the students become wonderful human beings. Not only good in their subject, but also become wonderful, capable, very competent human beings who succeed in their life. And the pleasure a teachers get is not in his success, but in the success of the students. Right? When today the lecture was given by one of your students, I'm sure the teachers felt so proud that one of our students is doing such wonderful work. Right? And that is the pleasure that a teacher gets. He's not he will still buy a new car and a new house and everything. That is okay. But the real bringing about these changes, once they are aware of what to do. So slowly the education is going to happen in the next coming year to find out how we bring about all these things we talk about in the new education policy, in the national education policy. This is a complete change. So, friends, this is the dawn of the student-centric education. Now, up to now, it has been the teacher-centric education. Now, it is the student-centric education. Now the teachers have to guide the students on what to study, when to study, where to study, and how to study. But ultimately, the decision is made by the students themselves. That is the new education, national education policy, the new policy, and that needs to be implemented very efficiently to bring the change. Otherwise, we will remain in education 1.0. You remember where we were training all the houses, all the faces into one kind of face. That's not like that. Now, according to you, according to the shape of your face, we need to give education. And that is possible when the choice is yours. But you have to become, students have to become knowledgeable in making the choice. And that guidance is given by the teachers. Right? The teachers guide you in the aisles. You are no longer a sage on stage. You are a guide on the aisles. So you start helping the students to acquire their own knowledge. There are called as many pedagogies are there, a lot of theories are there that need to be implemented. Thank you very much for your kind patience.
It's the time now to interact with Dr. Shiva Prasad sir.
Yeah. I just want to convey, I'm so happy and proud that our system, often we hear about NEP from politicians and their divisive policies are attached to it. So we start hating based on which party we are. So here, today I felt, okay, there are right people in the right spot. Extremely indebted to this, sir. I'm happy that people like you are in the right spot. And secondly, you show graphics in which think responsibly, think independently, act responsibly, and communicate effectively and grow continuously. I just would like to know, sir, from is your own theory or it is
These are the very well established graduate attitudes.
I would just like to add to it, sir. Yeah. I am General Manager Corporate Communications in MRTL. Yeah. I see, I have worked in MRTL for past 25 years, and I see these people with these qualities finally rise. Just by expecting that I should get more salary, I should get good job, I should get good facilities, nobody comes up. They come up to certain level and then they get stagnated. So if you people want to succeed, expecting more salary is not the choice. Being able to act responsibly, communicate effectively, think independently, and grow continuously. These are the things which would decide your fate. Thank you, sir.
So how can you do this way? Maybe for last 1.5 hours mostly. So we could not think about anything other than subject. So what is the secret after this?
So I have a real passion to do this because that's why I said I was a scientist for a long time, for nearly 35 years. But then I suddenly decided I should do something to help the children because I suffered as a student. So if I had better education system, probably I would be standing here with a Nobel Prize. I don't have a Nobel Prize because my teachers cheated me, right, all my life. This is just joking. What I'm trying to say is, I think we need to spread this. The youngsters have to change, and the world is changing. And if our youngsters don't change, I think we will become responsible for. I keep telling the terrorists have killed only about 32,000 people in the history of terrorism. But probably how many students have died in the classrooms, right? So how many people have died in the classrooms because so this is a bigger place where we can grow the children. Bring them out of that. Like we said, great opportunities can be created if we give them all-round development to the students. So it's only because of the passion. I should also take 1 minute to a commercial break to tell about our academy, the Higher Education, Karnataka State Higher Education Academy in Dharwad. We are trying to bring all this into the system. Not even during COVID times, not even on a Sunday, Christmas, Deepavali. We have never had a holiday for the last 4 years. We have a very small team but a dedicated team which is trying to work on this. I request all of you to support our system, okay, some way or other, to spread this message to everybody because we want to create a beautiful India in the future. Yeah.
I would like to thank Professor S. Shiva Prasad, member of the department and the college, for this kind of enlightenment lecture. It was really mind-blowing. I hope students really enjoyed it, as well as the colleagues of various departments. As we know, in Bangalore, there are very few people come out in the evening, but still we had sufficient number of people in this hall. I hope we have achieved the goal, although the mayor would not be able to know because of some urgent meeting he is trapped inside and could not come. Therefore, anyway, it is the time for all of us to thank Professor Shivaprasad for enlightening us. And I request Dr. Prakash Kansar to come over here and hand over his honorary to Professor. Once again, I thank all of you.